Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving deep into a really fundamental conflict of ideas. This is a debate that, according to our source material, has shaped entire civilizations, religions, and how we even think about ourselves.
And it really all boils down to two super simple but incredibly powerful phrases: man can versus man can't. Our source makes a bold claim that these might just be the most important words in all of history, the very core of this great debate.
So, here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with why these words matter so much. Then we'll unpack the whole man cannot argument. After that, we'll look at the counter perspective, man can. Then we'll see how societies were actually built on these ideas, and we're going to wrap it all up with a really critical question about ultimate authority.
All right, so let's jump right into our first section, history's most important words. And just to be clear, this is not some abstract philosophical exercise. The source argues this debate has massive, real-world consequences for things like power, authority, and even your own personal freedom.
So the central argument from our source is pretty bold. It claims that a lot of religious structures, we're talking from the very top all the way down to the local level, are basically built on one single idea, that humanity, is inherently limited, flawed, or incapable. The whole man cannot philosophy is their bedrock.
Okay, so that brings us to our second section, looking at the man cannot argument. And it's a fair question, right? Why would anyone, especially a religious leader, argue that human beings are fundamentally broken or incapable?
Really, let's just pause and think about that. What's the real motivation here? Why push the idea that people are inherently flawed? The source suggests it might have less to do with actual theology and a lot more to do with creating a specific kind of power dynamic.
And this is where it gets really fascinating, because this slide breaks down that dynamic perfectly. The source gives two examples that are worlds apart in scale, the Pope at the very top and a local eulogist. But look, the argument is basically the same. Man is sinful, or man is without honor. And what's the result? Well, you need an official middleman, right? The implication, according to the source, is that when you diminish humanity, you automatically elevate the authority of the institution or the cleric.
And get this, the source gives a personal story that just hits the nail on the head. Someone teaches a simple funeral prayer to a group of villagers, making a religious ritual something anyone can do. But the respected local cleric, he becomes absolutely furious. And his reason why says it all. If religion is easy, then we are no longer needed. It just perfectly captures this fear that empowering people directly threatens the authority of the institution.
All right, so now let's flip the script and look at the total opposite view. Section 3 introduces what the source calls the Qur'an's perspective, man can. This is a philosophy that's apparently rooted in reason and our own innate nature.
And as evidence for this, the source points to a question that apparently comes up again and again in the Qur'an. Will you not reason? You see, that's not really a gentle suggestion. It's framed as a direct challenge, an appeal to a core part of what makes us human.
So this whole man can philosophy is really built on two core ideas. First, you've got Fitra. The source explains this as our innate moral nature, the idea that God basically gives every soul a built-in compass for right and wrong. And second, you have aql, which is all about intellect and reason. The call to use our minds isn't just a side note, it's central.
And all of this leads to a really powerful concept called hujjah, which means the ultimate proof or the final authority. But here's the kicker. The source highlights a saying from an imam. When he was asked what the ultimate authority on earth is, he didn't point to a book, he didn't point to himself. He said it was the aql, the intellect.
Okay, so in section 4, we're going to zoom way out. Because according to the source, these two little phrases, man can and man cannot, well, they don't just shape how you think. They can literally build or break entire civilizations.
And the source lays this out as a tale of two eras, a really stark contrast. The argument goes that the man cannot philosophy was dominant in medieval Europe, and that led to stagnation, what many call the Dark Ages. On the flip side, the man can philosophy is given credit for fueling the incredible flourishing of early Islamic civilization and later on, the progress we see in the modern era.
This chart basically just puts that idea into a simple visual. On the one hand, you see a rising bar, a trajectory of civilization building, which the source links to the man can era of early Islam. And then you see the opposite, a period of decline, which is linked to the man cannot philosophy of medieval Christendom.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important section. We're getting to the heart of the conflict here. Who or what is the ultimate authority?
And the source really hones in on a strange paradox it sees in some of these more authoritarian belief systems.
The source really boils down this paradox into one pretty chilling idea. It goes something like this. You are commanded to research your faith, but if you happen to read the wrong books, or if you reach the wrong conclusion, you will be executed. It's a command to use your mind, but with a terrifyingly high-stakes, predetermined outcome.
In this timeline here, it really walks us through how a system like that can work. It starts with a simple command: go research, find certainty. But then the walls start closing in. Step 2, you're forbidden from reading so-called misleading books. Step 3, you can't even listen to dissenting views. And the final step? Well, if you reach a different conclusion, you face severe punishment, maybe even death.
So it all comes down to this one single question, doesn't it? What does it even mean to research something if there's only one answer you're allowed to find? Is that research at all?
And really, that's the big takeaway here. The whole debate presented in our source material leaves us wrestling with this one final question. What is the ultimate authority? Is it the institution, the one that tells you what you must believe? Or is it your own intellect, the tool you've been given to try and figure it out for yourself? It's a question about where we place our trust, and it's one that has echoed through the centuries.